Top of Ayin Vav Aleph, third line. This divorce, this should be a divorce on condition that you serve my father for 2 years, or on condition that you nurse the child for 2 years. Even though she does not fulfill the condition, the divorce is still valid. I'll explain why in a second. However, Amrullah, he says to her, Im teshamshi, im loy teshamshi, im tinki, im loy tinki. I'm sorry. Amrullah, im teshamshi, im loy teshamshi, im tinki, im loy tinki. Tiniki. Divrei Meir. So basically, Rameir says here that this condition is invalid. Why is it an invalid condition? Because he never he did not make a double tonight. He didn't say if this, then this, and else this will happen. Okay. Remember the rabbis say this guy of Hatnai raise a get v'mlav and a get. The rabbis say the condition is valid. You do not need to double the condition. Rav Shimon says there are a number of times where a condition is mentioned. Most famously with the children of Gad and Reuven. But also we have, let's say we are a Yehuda. I'm sorry, it's Yehuda. Yehuda takes responsibility over Binyamin, right? And again, it's a doubled condition. Not only that, there's another one. This one we had in the Haftarah actually. This is Shabbos Chazayin. It was 2 Shabbos ago, where God says, "In toivu ushmatim, in timanu umarisam." In toivu, if you desire shmatim, you listen to me. In timanu, if you reject me, umarisam, and you rebel against me. It's a double condition. Either you listen to me or you won't listen to me. Okay, we'll explain what exactly Rav Shimon is saying. Rav Shimon is noting that Tanai Kafel appears many times in Torah. It's not just with regard to Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. It appears many times. There's a double condition. Yeah, another example Rashi brings is with regard to Saita. Right, so Saita gets a curse, and we say as follows: if she lay with the man, then she'll be cursed, and if she did not lay with him, then v'niksav in Israel zara, then she'll give birth to a child. Okay, also Tanai Kafel. Okay, so now the Gemara explains. Ikad amri l'Rameir kamerlev, ikad amri l'Rabbanan kamerlev. So Rav Shimon was saying that Tanai Kafel exists not just with regard to the children of Gad and Reuven. So therefore what? And therefore, so what's he trying to say? So one opinion says he's arguing with Rameir. The Rameir Kamerlo, B'hachi Kamerlo. This is what he's saying. Okay. Just take a second here to break down the condition of the children of Gad and Reuven, and then I think there's something to take from that. So you have the condition of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, right? What's the double condition there? What's a typical double condition? A typical double condition is I'm giving you a gift of $100 on condition that you drive to, you take my grandmother to the airport. Okay. You take this person to the airport, I'll give you $100. Okay, now what's the inverse of that? If you don't take it to the airport, you don't get the money. Okay, now let's try to analyze Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. What would a typical condition of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven would be something like this? If you go to Israel, then you get the land. If you don't go to Israel, then you don't get the land. But that's not the condition. That wasn't a double condition. That would, in other words, the rabbis say as follows: if that was the condition, go to Israel, get the land. Don't go fight, get the land. Don't fight, don't get the land. There would be no need to double condition. It's obvious. But that wasn't a double condition. What was the double condition there? If you fight, then you get the land, then you get your land that you want. And if you don't fight, what do you get? You get like everybody else. So therefore, the rabbis say that it's not a double condition because there's something unique about that circumstance. It's not an even condition. There's two different sets of circumstances that come up. Each circumstance takes place in a different if. Are we together on this? Together? No, I just said something. I just said something new. It's not. We'll tie it in a moment. Okay, so this is sort of the fundamental argument between the rabbis and Rameir. The rabbis say that even though it's true that all the Tanai Kafels in the Torah, every time the Torah has a condition, is a Tanai Kafel, it's doubled. If yes, else this is going to happen. But in each scenario, there's a reason why the Torah needs to say a double condition. There's a reason for each one. Rabbi Meir says no. Rabbi Meir says that it teaches you Tanai Kafel. Says if Shimon Gamliel, hold on, the Torah has to say it twice or three times. The general rule here is that if the Torah would have said it once, we would cross compare. We would say this is relevant to more than its own category. But if the Torah repeats the same category, in this case it would be Tanai Kafel, four different times, then that tells you that it's specific to each of those four instances. There's a general debate whether the Torah has to repeat it twice or three times. This is what we call if it's Shnei Ksuvim Abam Kechad or Shlosh Ksuvim Abam Kechad. Regardless of here, it's at least four times. Okay, now, so the first version of Rav Shimon Gamliel here is disagreeing with Rameir. Rameir says we learn from the children of Gad and Reuven that you have to double a condition. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel can't be the case because the fact that Torah repeats double conditions Tanai Kafel three times, it tells me if anything the opposite. You can't learn it, and it's specific to those three instances enough to nothing else. So Rameir says you need Tanai Kafel. Shmuel says no. Tanai Kafel is only where the Torah requires it. Otherwise, there's no Tanai Kafel. That's the first version of Shmuel. V'ikad Amri, and some say. Some say it's according to the opinion of Rameir, about a little less than a quarter of the way down. First one line is Kamar. This is what he means to say. There is no, every time the Torah has a Tanai condition, it's always doubled, and therefore you cannot learn out. You can't learn from any other law of condition to the fact that the Torah institutes a condition with regard to three specific subjects. Some say, he's telling this to the rabbis. Because it's not just with regard to Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. Rav Shimon Gamliel is pointing out the Torah puts conditions in other areas also, and each time the Torah notes a condition, it's doubled. And at least now, the rabbis in general disagree with this because they say that none of them are extra, i.e., in every scenario, in every instance, there needs to be a Tanai Kafel. Like, for example, by Bnei Gad, Bnei Reuven, there needs to be Tanai Kafel. Why? Because if there wasn't a Tanai Kafel, I would think that if they don't fight, they don't get anything. So the Tanai Kafel tells me, no, if you don't fight, you get like everybody else. And Rav Shimon Gamliel here is sort of disagreeing. He's saying, look, Torah says it so many times, for sure, at least one of them is extra, and therefore we should learn Tanai Kafel. He's sort of agreeing with Rameir. Okay. Next Gemara. V'raminu. Question. This is a divorce on condition that you serve my father 2 years. You nurse the child for 2 years. If the father or the son dies, the divorce is not valid. That's the opinion of Rameir. Okay. Now, obviously, note that there's a problem. Rameir says you need a Tanai Kafel. Rameir over here says it's not a divorce. Presumably, that's because he holds that the condition is valid, right? Because if the condition was not valid, we'd say that Tanai Batul Ma'aseh. Condition is irrelevant and the action is fulfilled. Therefore, it would be a divorce. Over here, it's very interesting. We'll have to explain this in a moment. The rabbis say, even if he did not fulfill the condition, the divorce is valid. She can argue Tenli avicha v'ashim sheno. Give me your father and I'll serve him. Tenli benach. Give me your son. V'ani kenu and I'll nurse him. Hold on. Kash Rameir, Kash Rabbanon. We have a contradiction in Rameir. We just saw that Rameir says you need a Tanai Kafel. And over here he said, and therefore the divorce is valid, the condition is invalid. And over here we're saying no. We're saying that you don't need a Tanai Kafel. It's not clear what we're saying here, but regardless, there is no, it doesn't appear to be a Tanai Kafel. Maybe the Gemara's answer actually will be that there is one. Okay, that's the obvious get out of jail. There is a Tanai Kafel. Because the whole contradiction of Rameir here, if there's no Tanai Kafel, Rameir says Tanai Batul Ma'asakayim. Condition is invalid, divorce is therefore valid. So this seems to contradict the first Rameir. The Gemara's response is simply that one has a Tanai Kafel, one doesn't have a Tanai Kafel. If there's a Tanai Kafel, then Rameir says the condition is valid, divorce therefore is invalid because you didn't serve your father for 2 years, like the condition instead required. Kash Rabbanon, there's a contradiction in the rabbi's opinion. Why? Because the rabbis say you need to fulfill the condition, which is the full 2 years, and you don't have the argument to say that if he would have been alive, then I would have been nursing him or serving him. Okay, so Kash Rameir, Kash Rabbanon, Rameir like Kash Rameir is not difficult. Why? Hasam like Kafa Tanoi, Hachab like Kafa Tanoi. According to Rameir, it depends whether you made a Tanai Kafel. This Bryce that we just saw is talking about where you made a Tanai Kafel. If you did not make a Tanai Kafel, we say Tanai Batul Ma'asakayim, condition is invalid, therefore the divorce is valid. If you did not make a Tanai Kafel, if you did make a Tanai Kafel, then the condition is valid, therefore you must nurse the child for 2 years. If you did not nurse the child for 2 years, then what happens? You did not validate the condition, therefore the divorce is invalid because the condition is valid. Conditions are requirements. Who's the rabbis that say the divorce works even when you did not actually serve the full 2 years? It's Rav Shimon Gamliel of the Mishnah. As long as she's not the obstacle, the divorce is valid. And remember, and therefore this is not the scenario of Tzida, and Tzida was the previous Mishnah. The halacha does not follow Rav Shimon Gamliel, otherwise halacha always follows the opinion of Rav Shimon Gamliel. So halacha is like Rav Shimon Gamliel in this Mishnah. Okay. Tana Rabbanon. Amar lo b'fnei shnayim harei gitoch amanash t'sham she's our beis shanam. Okay. Interesting scenario. The guy is giving a divorce to his wife, and he sort of preps the divorce. He before actually giving the divorce, he calls 2 witnesses. He says, "Look, I'm going to give this divorce in a few minutes, and I'm giving it on condition that she serves my father for 2 years, or she nurses the child. I'm sorry, in this case, she serves my father for 2 years." And then he gets another 2 people minutes later, and he says to them, and he transacts the divorce, and he says to the witnesses, this divorce should be valid on condition that she gives me $20,000. Right, sort of combining the Mishnayos here. We started off the parak with the $20,000, and then we got to the serve my father for 2 years, and here the guy did both. The second witness's second statement does not invalidate the first, and therefore she has 2 options. She can either serve his father for 2 years, or she can give him $20,000. However, if he says in front of 2 people, this divorce should be valid, on condition that you give me $20,000. Because of Amarla, then at the moment, okay, so 2 minutes before the divorce, he says $20,000, and then as he gives the divorce, he says, "I want $30,000." I'm not gimel me'esos, 300 zuz. Then the second statement invalidates the first. Okay, this is sort of intuitive. Why is this? Because they're obviously in the same discussion. They're talking about money here, and if they're both statements of money, and all of a sudden he raises the stakes quite literally. So he's obviously means to nullify what he said previously. In the first scenario, he made 2 separate things: serve my father for 2 years, give me $20,000. It's 2 separate statements. Neither nullifies the other. Why? Because presumably if he wanted to, he should have said so. However, in the scenario which the 200 and the 300, it's obvious that the 300 overrides the 200 because it's the same language. They're both money, and here he wants to raise the stakes. So that's what he's doing. Yeah. Okay. Now the Mishnah makes the Brisa finishes with an interesting statement. Okay. So now there are two sets of witnesses, right? There are witnesses from there's the witnesses a few minutes prior to the first divorce, right? So the first witness, there's two scenarios here. In the first scenario, the witnesses the witnesses testify about the fact that he agrees to serve her father. She agrees to serve his father. The second set of witnesses see 200 zuz. In the second scenario, we have two sets of witnesses. The first set of witnesses sees 200 zuz, and the first set of witnesses sees $20,000. The second set of witnesses sees $30,000. You can't combine one witness from each group to testify that this divorce is valid with a condition. So the Gemara says, "Hi, what is this a reference to? Is it which scenario? If it's talking about the second scenario, Hare Botel. Of course, you can't combine the witnesses because he invalidated the first condition, which effectively means he invalidated the first set of witnesses as well. There's nothing for him to testify about. The first set of witnesses that testified for $20,000 were invalidated when he gave a divorce and required $30,000. So of course they can't combine. It's going on the first scenario. Okay, so the first scenario, they're talking about two different. The first scenario in the Mishnah, there's two witnesses. One witness is talking about serving his father for 2 years. The second set of witnesses is talking about $20,000. So obviously they're testifying about two different conditions. Of course, they can't combine the testimony. I would think maybe we should at least look at the lowest common denominator. What are they both telling us? That there is a condition here. There is a condition. So maybe we should combine them, that at least they can testify that there is a condition. No, even that they can't testify because fundamentally the condition is different, and therefore it's two different witnesses, two different testimonies, and they can't combine. Okay. Okay, we'll start the Mishnah. I'll tell you the Mishnah, how the Gemara, we'll learn the Mishnah according to the way the Gemara will want us to learn the Mishnah. Then we'll realize the Mishnah is exactly the opposite. Okay, so, I know sometimes people don't like when I do that, when we sort of, especially when I make a mistake and I get the whole Gemara opposite. Terrible. So, disclaimer, the Gemara is going to flip everything the opposite. So I'll explain the Mishnah the way the Gemara wants you to understand it, and then you'll realize the whole Mishnah is the opposite. Okay. So this is a guy who lives in Judea, and he's traveling to Galil. Okay, and he says to his wife, "This is a divorce, and if I don't come from now until 30 days, if I don't come back within 30 days, it's a divorce." He traveled from Judea to the Galil. He gets to the city of Antiphras. Antiphras is the first city in Galil, for now at least. Okay, so in other words, if you had to make a border between Yehudah and Galil, the first city in Galil is Antiphras. So he gets to Antiphras, so he traveled outside of Yehudah. Therefore, and then he returned to his wife. The condition is null and void. Why? Because he exited Yehudah. He got to go, then he came back within 30 days. So now the document is null and void. In other words, if he wants to make a second journey to Galil, he has to rewrite a divorce. We're together? Mm-hmm. We'll have another few examples of this. So now he's traveling the opposite direction. He's going from the Galil to Judea. And he tells his wife, if I leave Yehudah for 30 days, Judea for 30, if I leave Galil for 30 days, it should be a divorce. He was traveling from the Galil to Judea. He reaches the first town inside of Judea, which is Kfar Usanoi, the town of Usanoi. And then he turns around and comes back to his wife. So in other words, he left Galil and entered Yehudah, and then came back 5 days later because he went to the first town in Judea. So he didn't really travel that far. And he gets back, That's it. The divorce is ended because he's ended the condition. He's fulfilled it. The condition was if I don't come back, and he did come back. If he wants to take another trip, he has to write out a new divorce. Similarly, the guy's traveling from Israel to outside of Israel. He's traveling outside of Israel. He gets to Akko, and he turns around. Botel Tnoi. Akko was the first city that's outside of Israel. If anyone's thinking about what we learned in the beginning, we learned Akko is Eretz Yisrael Gittin, right? I'll get to it. Okay, for now, Akko is outside of Israel. Remember, we learned the first parak, and it came up again in one of the middle program.
Page position, please.
4 lines to the bottom of the page.
4 lines to the bottom of 75B.
76a. Akko gets to Akko. So at this point, Akko is considered outside of Israel. And turns around. In other words, he left Israel and came back, even though he only went to the first city. But the condition, he's sort of fulfilled the condition. He's come back, and therefore he would have to write a new divorce. I'm not going to be home for 30. If I leave you for 30 days, then the divorce should be valid. The Gemara will explain exactly what this means, but for now, the guy says if I leave for 30 days, then the divorce should be valid. And he's going back and forth, and then at the end of 30 days he's not there. The divorce is valid. Why? Because they were not in seclusion together. Why is that a considerable factor? The Gemara will explain that the real implication here was sexual relationships, and therefore that's what he meant being keneged panecha. According to one version, we'll see two. We'll see the Gemara in a moment. Okay. Anyway, what's the point here? The point is that if you're traveling from Yehudah to Galil, the first city in Galil is Antifras. If you're traveling from Galil to Judea, the first city in Judea is Kfar Sinai. You're traveling outside of Israel, the first city outside of Israel is Akko. But it's not like that. Remember, the Antifras Begol Havakaima. Do you mean to say that Antifras is the first city in the Galil? Raminu, Antifras Yehudah. Kfar Sinai, the city of Kfar Sinai was actually Galil. So we're talking about a scenario where he didn't actually leave Judea or Galil. When he was traveling from Yehudah to Galil, he ended up in Antifras, which is actually the last city in Judea. Or when he was traveling from the Galil to Yehudah, Judea, he got to Kfar Sinai, which is actually the last city in the Galil. He did not leave the Galil. Been a time in between Yehudah and Galil. So let's say the guy says on condition that I go to Judea, and he left Antifras but did not enter Kfar Sinai. So then it's a stuff against. We don't know what to do. Okay. Anyway, this seems to contradict our Mishnah, because our Mishnah seems to imply that Antifras is in Galil, not in Judea, and Kfar Sinai is in Judea, not in Galil. So the Gemara explains as follows. Abai really changes the Mishnah very fundamentally here. It says as follows: There's actually 2 conditions. The first condition is imatina legalil la'alter lehavegita. If I travel to the Galil, it should be divorced immediately. Or alternatively, if I'm 30 days in Judea, then the divorce should be valid as well. So what the Mishnah is actually saying is as follows. Again, so condition number 1 is if I am in Judea, if I enter the Galil, it's a divorce, period. Or if I hang around for 30 days before coming back, it should also be a divorce. So what's the Mishnah saying? If you got to Antifras, you did not leave Judea yet. So therefore, it's not an instant divorce. Had you left Judea, that would be an instant divorce. But you came back within 30 days. So therefore, you did not validate the condition. Therefore, the divorce is invalid. You need to give a new document. If he gets to Antifras and he turns around and comes back, he did not enter the Galil. He stayed in Judea. And nor did he travel for 30 days. The condition is invalidated. Okay. Mishnah. This should be a divorce if I don't come from now until 30 days. One second. Okay, this is the story of someone leaving Israel. He gets to Akko. Remember the Akko Medina Sayam Kaimi. Do you mean to say that Akko is outside of Israel? Omer of Safar says, Mifti Rabbana Mehadadi. So someone was traveling from Israel to Bavel. So the rabbis would escort him until Akko. But Akko have a mifteri. They would say their goodbyes in Akko. That's where they make the what do they call that? The sending off party. They make they make a party to send them off to Bavel. So they do it in Akko, which also because if there's no good reason, one should not leave Israel. Amar Abaya says, same answer as before. Trey Tanaika Amarlo. There are two conditions here. Number one, if I get outside of Israel, it should be a divorce immediately. Or if I'm in Israel for 30 days and don't come back, it should also be a valid divorce. And then therefore, if he gets to Akko, the chazar and he comes back, the one second. Okay. So condition number one is if I get outside of Israel, it should be a divorce. Or alternatively, if I wait 30, the guy waits 30 days in Israel, it should also be a divorce. Okay, so he got to Akko, comes back. He did not get to outside of Israel because Akko is part of Israel. Nor did he hang around for 30 days. Therefore, he does not fulfill the condition that divorce is not valid, and if he wants to divorce his wife, he has to write a new document. Okay, ever. He's not going to show up for 30 days, and he's been in and out. It's the Mishnah says the divorce is valid because he was not in seclusion with her. So let's explain the Mishnah. The Gemara says he didn't leave for 30 days. He's constantly coming in and out. Okay. So the Gemara's first explanation is Amar Funa Panecha Tashmish, into an intimate relationship. Why did he say his face? It was just sort of a cleaner language. Okay. Therefore, according to Rafona, the interpretation here was a relationship within 30 days. And because they did not have a relationship within 30 days, therefore the divorce is valid. Rebbe has different interpretation. Panecha means the face literally. He says to her like this: if I leave you for 30 days, divorce is valid. The next 30 days, the guy's in and out, but they never were in seclusion together. And then he goes for a 30-day journey. Then the divorce is valid. If they were in seclusion together, what do we say? We say to get yashan. They were intimate after the giving of the divorce, and therefore the divorce is not valid. However, over here, because they were not intimate, they were not even in seclusion together, so therefore the divorce is good. Tanikav said Rabbi Yehudah, we have a brayso that supports the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah. This should be a divorce if I leave you for 30 days. And he was coming in and out, and they were not in seclusion. Then at a later point in time, if he leaves for 30 days, the divorce is valid. We'll get Yoshan Ein Chayshin. And we are not concerned for a divorce that is considered an old divorce, which would be an intimacy after the giving of the divorce. Because they were not in seclusion. So the Gemara says the obvious question: why aren't we concerned that maybe they were? 1 second. She says they were not in seclusion, but maybe they were in seclusion. Maybe they sort of made up with each other and decided to come back together. So Rabbi Rafuna says we're talking about where the husband agreed that his wife would be believed. He trusts his wife to say that they were not in seclusion. So that's why we trust her. Some point this to the Mishnah. The divorce should be valid today if I don't come within the next 12 months. Well, this is the mission. This is in the next mission. We'll see this in either today or tomorrow. And he dies within 12 months. Hareze get. Okay. If he says, I'm giving you a divorce today, if I don't come within 12 months, and sure enough, within 12 months, the guy dies. The divorce is valid immediately because he doesn't show up within 12 months. Hold on. Maybe they were intimate. It's a get yashan. It's an old get. Because the reason why the divorce is valid is because he says me'achshav. He says, I'm giving you the divorce today, but he only dies 8 months later. Maybe they were intimate. Maybe they were. Where the guy says, I trust you to say that we're not in seclusion. Okay, so there's two possibilities. There's the Mishnah and there's the Brisa. If this statement was said on the Mishnah, where the guys sort of they're living together. 1 second, hold on. I'm going to take that back a second. Sorry, the opposite. In the Mishnah, the guy's traveling. He's not there at all. So therefore, it's much more logical to presume. 1 second. If in the Mishnah we're concerned that maybe they were intimate, even though he's sort of traveling, and it doesn't seem like he's come home. So then for sure we would be concerned that maybe they were intimate in the previous scenario where the guy's coming home constantly, according to Rabbi Yehudah. However, if even if in that scenario we're concerned because the guy's coming home, it does not mean we would be concerned that they were intimate in the Mishnah, because in the Mishnah the guy's not there at all. To say that he sort of drove in the middle of the night and then left early in the morning, who says that that's a concern? Halayasa. He didn't show up. There's no reason to be concerned. Let's see the next Mishnah. This should be a divorce if I don't come. If I don't come home within the next 12 months. Again, notice he did not say the word me'achshav, nor did he say almanas. He says if I don't come within the next 12 months, it should be a divorce. When is it going to be a divorce? 12 months later. But what's necessary to happen within 12 months later? He has to be alive, right? And get lachar misi. You can't give a divorce after a guy dies. So what happens? She dies in the 12 months, and a get. It's not a get because he can't divorce her at the end of the 12 months. He's not around. He's dead. What happens if he said the divorce should be valid now if I don't come within the next 12 months? And he dies within those 12 months. Then the divorce is good. Raise the get because the divorce is valid at the moment that he gave it, not when he dies or at the end of the 12 months. If I don't come within 12 months, then after the 12-month period, write and give it divorce. And they didn't listen to him. And they they wrote the divorce within the 12 months, and they gave it after 12 months, and a get. Divorce is not valid. Similarly, if he reframes it and first he says, write and give a divorce to my wife, if I don't come within 12 months. And then same problem. They wrote it, within the 12 months, they wrote the divorce. And they gave the divorce after the 12 months. And a get, the divorce is not good. Rabbi Yossi says, because I get this is a kosher divorce. 1 second. If they wrote the divorce and gave it after the 12-month period, and then he dies. If the divorce was given before he dies, then the divorce is valid. Everything's fine. However, if he dies before the get was given, so he can't give. He effectively he's just appointed the messenger a year earlier, but doesn't mean that he never gave her the divorce at that point. And therefore, the divorce is not valid. But if we don't know, then we don't know, and it's a suffix. It's a suffix whether or not the divorce is valid or not. Great day.
Great day.